Spotlight. The most technologically advanced robotic surgical procedures are now available at Mercy Hospital. Plus, discover how a deadly duel highlighted the clash of honor and violence in early St. Louis. And then meet a photo montage artist that you can see at the upcoming St. Louis Art Fair. But first, the final 20 years of Michelangelo's unusually long life. It's Sunday, and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Think of Rome, and you might think of the Vatican. Think of the Vatican, and you might think of the Sistine Chapel. Think of the Sistine Chapel, and you probably think of Michelangelo. But he was far more than a painter. Michelangelo, the greatest artist of the Renaissance, was truly a Renaissance man. A sculptor, a poet, and in his final years, primarily an architect.
Part of the transformation of the Rome we know today is because of Michelangelo's architectural projects in the late 70s and 80s of his life.
And his biggest project of all was at the Vatican. But it wasn't the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. It was St. Peter's Basilica.
At 70, he's, deserves to retire. And the Pope comes and says, you're taking over St. Peter's, the largest, most complicated architectural project in the world. Michelangelo just can't believe it. He's 70 years old. He has no business taking over such a project. But you do not say no to a Pope.
And William Wallace just can't seem to say no to Michelangelo. Dr. Wallace is a professor of art history at Washington University and an internationally recognized authority on Michelangelo, whose seventh book about the artist, called Michelangelo, God's Architect, tells the story of the artist's final years and greatest masterpiece.
If you ask who's the greatest engineer of the Renaissance, everybody would say Leonardo da Vinci. We have 6,000 pages of Leonardo's drawings and all kinds of brilliant engineering ideas. But Leonardo didn't actually carry out any of those engineering ideas. Michelangelo just did it. He didn't talk about it, he didn't draw it, he just did it. And he accomplished enormously complicated and impressive engineering feats all through his life. So he had an engineering skill and knowledge that was of a depth beyond anybody else of his time. And it started with the fact that he was a sculptor. He was bringing marble blocks from the Carrara quarries 90 miles from Carrara to Florence. And these were blocks that are 8 tons, larger than anything that had been moved since Roman times 1,000 years before. So he had to rethink how the Romans had done this and how they had transported these materials, how they lifted 8 tons and moved them 90 miles. So that was the beginning of his engineering knowledge, which helps, of course, in building a building.
Well, you talk about, too, using the donkeys to haul these things and this kind of system that he arranged around with ramps and so forth to get the donkeys to haul that up there.
This was a brilliant innovation in St. Peter's. We don't actually know, unless you climb the dome in St. Peter's, because you climb the dome and come down one of these helical ramps. There are 4 of them in the corners of the dome. And these are enclosed ramps, circular helical ramps that go up. And these were designed by Michelangelo so that he could carry the materials, the building materials, sand, bricks, water, and the stone, up 200 or 250 feet, and the donkeys were carrying these up these ramps. And of course, if the donkeys knew they were 250 feet up in the air, they would have frozen and they wouldn't have moved. But inside these helical ramps, they were very comfortable and they were very easy to carry these heavy, heavy weights up. So this is one of these brilliant innovations that Michelangelo came up with.
Well, and of all the parts of St. Peter's that people would picture, I think, when they first picture St. Peter's in their mind, at least, is the dome.
The sad thing is, of course, Paul, is that Michelangelo never saw that dome completed. Some people complain, Michelangelo would have changed his mind and the dome isn't exactly what we expect. Yes, he probably did change. He changed his mind every single day. Every single day he went on the architectural site, he changed his mind. But the dome is the dome that he basically designed, and he would have been perfectly, I think, content to see it rise all the way to what we have today.
Michelangelo knew he would never live long enough to see St. Peter's completed. But despite new problems and old age, he persevered, because Michelangelo was never building St. Peter's for himself.
Well, as he said, he ended up working for God. At the end, it was no longer working for his friends or his family. The person he was working for was God.
Watch the full interview to find out why the St. Louis Arch has a unique similarity to St. Peter's Basilica. It's at hecmedia.org.
They are the best-selling authors and all of your favorite genres. For in-depth, one-on-one interviews, go to hecmedia.org. HEC has been bringing you positive programming and award-winning content for decades. Arts, education, culture, in-depth discussions, films, and more. All in one place, hecmedia.org.
One of the big draws to filling movie theater seats has always been watching futuristic technology and robots. People want to be in awe, like in the case of robots used for surgery. Only this is not sci-fi. It's at Mercy Hospital, St. Louis.
And that's where you have to remind them that, I will be the one doing the surgery, but I'm controlling a robot.
A few feet away from the patient.
Really a paradigm shift for surgery in general. So, with traditional surgery, open surgery, you cut open the patient, but you're standing at the bedside right next to the patient with your hands on the patient.
Dr. Shekhar Dharmarajan is the director of robotic surgery at Mercy Hospital, St. Louis, and he's one of the staff colorectal surgeons.
This gentleman had perforation of a sigmoid colon from diverticulitis, and now we're doing his surgery to take out that part of his colon.
Intuitive is the company making the robotic surgery possible.
It's the only company that makes a robot that's approved for colorectal surgery and general surgery.
This is the latest advancement in robotic surgery, and it's considered a major update to the widely used Da Vinci system called DV5, or the Da Vinci 5 robot.
And Mercy has been one of the first institutions in the St. Louis region to acquire a DV5 robot. It really gained its application for surgeries in the pelvis. The pelvis is an area that's kind of difficult to access. It's deep in the body, and so it's hard to get good visualization there. The robot has 4 arms. One has a camera attached to it so that we can see, and then we use 3 other arms. One is used to hold the tissue, and the other 2 are used to work and dissect the tissue. We hook the arms on to these trocars and instruments that go in the patient's body.
Different little openings in the belly where you put these instruments. You actually have access to multiple quadrants or parts of the belly on the inside that would require a much larger incision to get to otherwise. You can reach places that are sometimes much, much harder to reach.
The Da Vinci 5 robotic system is designed to assist surgeons performing minimally invasive procedures. The surgeon is controlling the robotic arms and instruments with enhanced precision, dexterity, and visualization. It provides the most immersive 3D experience inside the patient's body. The surgeon's view is magnified in high resolution, allowing the surgeon to navigate such a small area as everything appears large.
The camera is actually 10x magnified, so we get great views in the pelvis. We can see very fine detail, and when you can see very fine detail, we can do precise, accurate surgery.
Being a surgeon is all about seeing. With 10 times the zoom than my own naked eye, I could see tiny little blood vessels, and that helps limit the amount of blood loss that you have.
One of the things that robotic surgery was missing was tactile feedback. Now with this tactile feedback, we get a sense in our fingers of actually how hard we're pulling on the tissue, how much we're dissecting. So if you start dissecting and you feel resistance, which is something open we used to do all the time, but obviously once we got to laparoscopic and robotic, we lost that feeling. This restores that feeling, so you can kind of feel, oh boy, this tissue feels like it's tumor tissue, and you get that sense of feeling back, which is an important part of doing surgery.
And it's not just with the hands. There's a reason why Dr. Dharmarajan has his shoes off.
So you can kind of feel while you're operating.
The robot has a first-of-its-kind technology called force feedback. So just how is he controlling so much in this way?
If you click your fingers, the scissors will start cutting. And then as you move your arms, the whole robotic arm moves around in the patient's body. So you get very precise movement that you control.
The list of benefits almost seem like it's too many to count.
Its computing power will be able to expand and do a lot more as things roll out in the future.
I do believe it's going to be so good as your own hand feeling the tissue through the robotic platform, which is actually very remarkable. So when you combine the newest versions with potentially microscopic vision and the potential to add imaging overlay with CT scans, MRIs, to put it in an anatomical map of the patient while you're doing the surgery, I just think it's going to be just so amazing for patients.
The main takeaway for patients is patients generally do much better. A lot of patients after robotic surgery will wake up the next day and they'll feel like, I haven't even had surgery. That's generally what we hear, is they say, oh, I don't even feel like I had surgery.
Later on Spotlight, helping kids learn to navigate bikes and life. History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. In 1817, a deadly duel on Bloody Island between Thomas Hart Benton and Charles Lucas revealed how honor, pride, and violence collided in the early days of St. Louis. Museum educator Andy Prim explains.
Thomas Hart Benton, one of Missouri's first two senators, had a long and colorful career, first as a soldier, then an attorney, and then as a politician. But before he was ever elected senator, Benton became notorious for a pair of duels he fought in 1817. Those contests ended with Benton killing one of his courtroom rivals, a promising young St. Louis attorney from a prominent French family named Charles Lucas. The dispute between Benton and Lucas began as a professional disagreement. The two men faced each other on opposite sides of a contentious legal dispute in 1816, in which Lucas emerged victorious. The conflict escalated a few months later when Lucas publicly questioned Benton's eligibility to vote. This led to Benton calling Lucas, who was 10 years younger, a puppy. This word seems to have carried an extremely disrespectful and insulting connotation at the time, and Lucas demanded satisfaction. The two parties quickly set a time for a private interview, a colloquial term for a duel. On the morning of August 12, 1817, Benton and Lucas met on Bloody Island, a small island on the Mississippi that was seen as a kind of no man's land between Missouri and Illinois. They agreed on a formal set of rules, that each would carry a pistol, that they would walk until they were 30 feet apart, and that upon receiving a signal, they would fire. Lucas struck Benton with only a glancing blow, but Benton's shot took Lucas in the neck. Though seriously wounded, Lucas survived, and at first it seemed that the matter was settled. But in the weeks that followed, Benton began to hear rumors that he had not played fair. Benton, a better marksman than Lucas, was accused of choosing a wide distance to give himself an advantage. And furthermore, Benton believed that Lucas was the source of these rumors. After another escalation of tensions, the two agreed to meet once more on Bloody Island on September 27th. This time, the only change in procedure was a much shorter distance, only 10 feet apart. The two men fired on each other again, and this time, Benton's shot mortally wounded Lucas. As Lucas lay dying, Benton is said to have asked for forgiveness. Lucas refused to give it at first, but is then reported to have said, "I can forgive you, I do forgive you." Whether these magnanimous last words are genuine or not, we will never know. Benton himself almost never spoke of the duel in later years. His reticence to speak seems to suggest a certain amount of shame about the event, or at least an awareness that it wouldn't be good for his political reputation if people thought of him as a killer. Nevertheless, the incident did not prevent Benton from being elected senator in 1821 and serving a decades-long career in Washington. The Lucas family, on the other hand, pushed their version of events, that Benton had behaved in a brutish and immature fashion, and that the young Charles Lucas, only 25 at the time of his death, was a paragon of civic virtue, who represented all the best qualities of the time: honorable, courageous, and even willing to absolve his killer of the crime. Today, dueling is widely considered a barbaric practice, and rightly so. But this incident reveals much about the culture and attitudes of the time. For upper-class gentlemen of St. Louis, dueling was a matter of course when honor was on the line. And for Charles Lucas and Thomas Hart Benton, honor was something worth dying for.
Next, on History Spotlight, the remarkable story of an Osage woman whose journey across Europe and back to St. Louis is captured in the famous History of the Indian Tribes of North America.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. HEC Media has been bringing home the hardware for over a decade. Arts and education to author talks, magazine shows and documentaries, individual craft achievements to overall excellence. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight. Mark your calendars. The 2025 St. Louis Art Fair returns September 5th through the 7th. Get a sneak peek at the talent behind the canvas with HEC Media's Meet the Artist series. Before you even step foot at the fair, discover in-depth insights into each artist's creative process and what inspires their work. Watch now at youtube.com at Who Else Loves Art and look for the 2025 St. Louis Art Fair playlist.
My name is Marissa S. White. I create photo montages. Basically what it entails is I take multiple photographs and then layer them using the computer, often creating surreal and fantastical scenes. I used to always be playing around when I was a little girl. I knew I always wanted to be an artist, and photography actually came a little bit later. I went to school initially for a drawing and painting degree, but when I got to photography school, we had one class where it was more of a commercial photographer came in as our instructor, and he was giving us a breakdown of, like, let's say you're shooting for a client and you have 4 different models, but they can't all be there at the same time. So you need to conceptually plan out what everything is going to look like, and then you can bring each model in at different points and then layer and blend them together. And at that moment, the light bulb went off, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is how I can create everything that's in my head now. So I draw from personal narratives, emotional landscapes, and kind of spiritual symbolism, and bringing that into my work and dealing with themes of transformation, connection, and the mysteries that exist beyond the physical realm. Sometimes I do have an amazing idea and it is dying to get out of me, and I go find the different places that I can then photograph in order to bring all of those elements together. I had this one idea for the longest time, at least a year or so, of creating this waterfall and turning it into hair, essentially. And it took me forever to find the perfect waterfall. And then when I did, I just so happened to be traveling with this young girl who had the perfect hair then that I could help blend into that space. There are times when I have no idea what I'm doing and I don't have any ideas of what to play with. And so I go to my vast library of photographs, and then I start just kind of thumbing through them and then just seeing what speaks to me. Maybe it didn't speak before, but now it's, calling to me. And then I start layering different images that maybe wouldn't necessarily go together, but just to see how they fit. And it's often kind of within that sense of play that I would say that the muse takes over and tells me exactly what to do, and then by the end of it, I know exactly what it means, but I had no idea what I was doing when I started with it. I did an entire series called Certain These Clouds Go Somewhere, and it's all about more or less trying to find our purpose in the world, trying to overcome fear. I think there's a lot of self-limiting beliefs that are out there that we assume are ours, but I think were probably imposed upon us by others. I do, at the end of the day, think that we're all connected in more ways than we can possibly imagine. And it's our humanity really that binds us together. And if we allow ourselves to open up and be authentic and raw and real with each other, with another person, even a stranger, then it gives that other person permission to do the same for themselves. And so I hope to kind of inspire others to recognize that we're all on this plane having a human experience, and that we are capable of so much more than we give ourselves credit for.
I'm Scott Hartley, and I do hand-blown art glass. It's molten glass, 2,000 degrees. Everything is done on the end of the blowpipe, and it's all done by hand, so there's no molds or anything like that. Everything is free-form on the end of the blowpipe. So I've done art since I was a little kid, drawing and painting and things like that, but I really went and watched glass blowing. I used to teach high school biology. My degree was in biology, and I loved science and I loved art, and once I watched glass blowing, I was like, this is almost like the perfect merger of both of them together. I love form and color and all that on the art side, but then there's also a lot of physics, a lot of chemistry involved in the glass, and the physicality of it I just really, really liked. It's pretty wild how it's created, starting from molten glass to where it's finished. And it's very flexible, it's very fluid, it moves and almost breathes when you're working with it. So I try to capture a little bit of that movement and flexibility in the final product, like a snapshot of that, so people can see how flexible and fluid it really is. The intertwined pieces for me, there's a lot of symbolism with that. I mean, every piece I make, when it's a set that go together and there's multiple pieces, they are not leaning on each other. They are literally standing. So they're balanced perfectly, standing alone, but yet they go together as a set. So much like us, we all stand alone, but we're much better when we're together. There's so much going on in this world. It's such a crazy world, but it's time to step back and take a look and kind of take in the whole thing, and just to really appreciate color and form and shape and all those things going together to make one unified piece of glass as well.
Like, comment, and subscribe to support arts, education, and culture.
I have two daughters, Lavender and Lotus. They like to play and learn new things like most other children, and they love to ride their bikes.
These kids are learning there's more to riding a bike than just pedaling.
They teach them how to repair the bikes, air up the tires, fix a broken chain, teach them the importance of wearing a helmet, and all the types of safety things that you need to know when riding.
This is St. Louis Bee Works, a nonprofit organization giving kids an opportunity to discover their potential.
What my kids are getting out of it is they're more confident. I'm more confident that they can ride their bikes and be safe.
We live in West County, and sometimes it's not as easy to find a more diverse group. And so I was really excited when we showed up. I'm like, it's exactly what I was hoping for.
The main idea behind starting the organization was to give the kids something to do after school, over the weekends, that kind of thing. And the bikes were kind of a natural vehicle to grab the kids' attention.
Their premier program, Bicycle Works, is a 12-week program for kids 8 to 17 who can already ride a bike.
Because we live in an urban environment, it's so important for them to learn the skills necessary to navigate the road and work around the cars and really be able to get somewhere on their bike.
All of our bikes are donated to us. So we have a handful of drop-off locations around the metro area, and we have some great partners like the Alpine Shop, the Hub. They help us collect bikes from their customers, and then we will go and pick them up because we need a lot of bikes each year.
Each class is 2 hours long. In the first 6 weeks, Students learn about bike maintenance and safety skills.
We'll go through the anatomy of a bicycle, flat changing, safety, making sure that they know how to work the brakes and shifting, and we teach them skills on bikes, how to maneuver their bikes really well.
And then they learned like the hand signals, which I don't know, but whatever it is, I don't remember what they are anymore, but my kids know it.
The next 6 weeks focuses on riding.
We also have to coach them about balance, and we have to coach them about being able to maneuver and understand the rules of the road, and as simple as starting a bike. So we break it down to the bare minimum of that one.
I don't know. I was like, I have some bad habits.
We have a fruit highlight. We talk to them about making sure they drink enough water, especially in St. Louis when it's super, super hot during the summer.
Once the kids successfully complete the program, they earn a refurbished bicycle, a helmet, a lock, and a light set free of charge.
We've steadily been growing every year. And so with that staff, we've been able to rapidly expand our programs in more numbers of students. Part of that is we've outgrown this building, right? We've quickly outgrown this building. And so we had a space over at the Lemp warehouse complex that was storage for us. And unfortunately, the building had collapsed.
Bicycle Works lost 800 bikes.
It's a huge loss for us, right? It just couldn't have come at a worse time. The pandemic was, starting to come into full swing, and we were seeing demand for programs go through the roof, right? So everybody's kids were at home. We had people driving bikes up from Cape Girardeau. We had people bringing donations in from all over the place and helping us restock, the bikes that we needed to be able to operate.
It remembers all the information that's been stored on the computer, so if you're trying to save something.
Over the time, we've kind of evolved into other programs. The other main program we have is our Earn a Computer.
In the first few weeks, we're into coding, we're into working with the hardware of a computer, we're teaching them binary code and how it's integral to every computer language. We also want them to prove that they learned something, so we have them create presentations, documents saying this is what we've learned. We teach them internet safety, we teach them how networks work. Basically, we teach them about the speed of the internet.
At the end of the Bike Works program, the students will earn a computer.
Every graduation, whether it's with the bikes or the computers, I ask them, what are you going to do first with your computer? And a lot of times it's like, I'm going to play the latest game. Great, that's awesome. Now you have an opportunity to do that.
We've been running the bike program year-round, and it's been great.
Next week, a tutoring program specifically designed for minority students. Plus, more talented artists that you can meet at the upcoming St. Louis Art Fair the first weekend in September. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.